What if, some day or night, a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, "This life as you live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more." In our life, we will inevitably come across a great question, a question which may take our entire lives to answer. Are you content with your life? This question alone can be one of the most difficult things we may ever attempt to answer in our life. Some of us may answer according to our present feelings and desires. If in the moment or in the past week we've been happy, then we may answer yes, or if we've been melancholy and down, we may answer no. But the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wanted to examine and answer this question more deeply. Friedrich Nietzsche, born in Prussia, or what is now modern-day Germany, was a passionate philosopher. Having grown up in a religious family with a father who was a church pastor, he was surrounded by religious ideas and meanings early in his life. At the age of 24, he became the youngest professor to hold the chair of classical philology at the University of Basel. Soon after having major disagreements with how philosophy was being taught in the university and the ongoing challenges that came with the deterioration of his health, he quit his job as a professor and went on to live a quiet life in the mountains. This is where he produced some of his most influential and significant works, such as Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, On the Genealogy of Morals, and the Antichrist. Nietzsche, writing in a time where religion was heavily under scrutiny regarding its truth, recognized the danger which this new transition posed to how we would go on to have meaning in our lives. Writing, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderer of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us?" Religion, specifically Christianity, was a foundational element in the life of many people in terms of how they interacted with the world and how they formed meaning for their lives. Religion's ability to provide meaning for people heavily relied upon its explanations of why the natural world was the way it was. However, as science began to fill this hole, religion became increasingly more questioned, and with this, people began to question whether or not they could trust the meaning that it provided in their lives as well. With this, people began to drift towards existential nihilism, the belief that life has no meaning. Nietzsche saw this coming and began to question himself. How can we live meaningful lives in spite of an existence of an eternal life? How can we begin to have our meanings not come from an external source like religion, but rather internally from ourselves? If we continue to read the quote from earlier, we will see Nietzsche's answer. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement? What sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? This is where Nietzsche proposes one of his most significant ideas, the Übermensch, or the overman. The idea of man becoming God, of being self-sufficient existentially. Similar to how a plant is able to produce its own food through photosynthesis, so too we will be able to produce meaning from within ourselves. But if man is to become such, there is one trait which we must come into terms with if we are to become gods. We must become timeless, content and ready to affirm our lives in every waking moment, good or bad. The idea of Amor Fati stretches back all the way to ancient philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, whose Stoic philosophy advocated that one should love one's fate in life, even in hardship. However, Nietzsche was not a Stoic. In fact, he hated the Stoics with a passion, as he believed that their philosophy was life-denying and taught people to cope with their circumstances rather than use their suffering to fuel their striving towards greatness. Nietzsche's version of Amor Fati was different. He writes, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely to bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but to love it. You should not only cope with your hardship and accept it, but also love it and recognize it as the fuel which you will use to better yourself. You should realize that in the journey of becoming a god, man must recognize that his life too will be timeless, eternal." Let us ask the question from the beginning once more. Are you content with your life? Nietzsche has a simple test which we can use to answer this question. Would you live your life in the exact same way, eternally, endlessly repeating every joy, sorrow, madness, embarrassment, and anger you ever experienced, every decision you made again and again eternally, every time you chose to go out with friends, to get into a relationship, to go out on a trip, to study or not to study, your life endlessly repeating the same exact way. In Nietzsche's perspective, if you cannot answer yes to this question, then you are not truly happy with your life. You do not have enough internal meaning and fulfillment in your life which will push you to live like a god, for your existence to eternally recur. The question in each and everything, do you desire this once more and innumerable times more, would lie upon your action as the greatest weight.